You're watching Stockwatch. I'm Simon Brown. Joining me to unpack your stock-related questions tonight, Ricus from PSG Hole and One Ruimsig, David Shapiro from Sasfin Securities. Be sure to send your questions through email, stockwatch@bdtv.co.za, SMS 41392, or on Twitter @BusinessDayTV using hashtag Stockwatch. Gents, appreciate the time this evening. David, budget 3.0 today. I mean, it happened. I suppose it's good. It kind of feels like a non-event. We're all currently looking at the White House.
It was a non-event, which is good.
Yeah.
Counting, when you present the counts, it should be a non-event, and nothing controversial there. I like what they're going to spend on infrastructure. I just hope they can fulfill that. It's a decent amount to get things going. Just concerned about the lower growth projections, but one can understand that in the current global environment. But Simon, I don't think the market responded. I just took it in its stride, and that together with the inflation number, we just carried on looking at platinum shares. So, which I like. That's the kind of markets I like. Just focus on the businesses, on the companies, rather than some of these extra issues.
Yeah, well, that's good, because we've got lots of questions on platinum shares. Ricus, the rand was moving, which I suppose is good news. I mean, how much do you, take a BDI on the rand, trade the currency, or is it just sort of one of those things that will happen and be part of the process?
Yeah, I think a part of that is dollar weakness. A part of that is obviously precious metals having a really nice rally, so that would lead into rand strength, and the rand is strength, and it's looking strong, and it's certainly against the dollar. And I just looking at a chart, I won't be surprised if it goes and revisit the sort of 17 rand level. But as David said, with the budget out of the way, I won't say it's more of the same. It's probably less of the same because there's less money going around, but. Yeah, that was a non-event. So our market certainly, precious metals shooting the lights out, and a little bit of strength coming into consumer counters as well, I saw at the end.
Yeah, I saw that as well. You mentioned precious metals. David mentioned PGMs. I've got a couple of questions about PGMs, mostly saying what's pushing them higher. I don't know, Ricus, if you've got insight on that. More importantly, which would be your best PGM miner? The one question was, should it be Sibanye because they've got some gold? Ricus, let's stay with you a moment. PGMs, is it a space you're looking at? Certainly, platinum and palladium looked interesting, but they've caught me this before.
Yeah, you're dead right. And looking at the platinum price itself, it's at a level where it's turned around and gone down again for the last number of months. It could even be a year and a half. But I think the rally at the moment, possibly just yesterday, the World Platinum Council, or whatever they call themselves, just announced that they expect next year's deficit in platinum to be higher than expected. So that's pushing it a little bit. And I won't be surprised if Cyril's meeting with Trump today also has something to do with it, considering the strategic importance of platinum to the US.
David, platinum, is this a sector that's starting to excite you, or is it still, let's just see some more effort beforehand?
Well, look, both platinum and palladium through that $1,000 level. I know that's just psychological. It doesn't really mean anything because it's been hovering around the late 900s. But still, it's breaking through, Simon. We've waited so long for this base to the sideways trend to break through, and their first signs of it. Amplat hasn't done it yet, but Impala, Sibanye, are looking better, and we just hope it sustains itself and that it continues. And I think with infrastructure spend globally likely to pick up, there might be some hope around there. We need it, and I go back to the budget. As Ricus says, I think we need something to spur us on and to just give us a little bit more spending power here, because the cupboard's dry at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that something comes of it. I'm not unhappy with markets globally, despite all the noise around it. So good signs.
David, you make that point. I mean, equity markets are looking perfectly fine. S&P, Nasdaq, Europe, equity markets looking fine. David, bond markets less so. Japan bonds getting sold off today, US bonds under pressure, which is, I mean, that's kind of the old theory is the bond market's the one that really matters.
Don't confuse the two. I'm an equity man, so don't talk to me about bonds. But no, I mean it. You've got to watch that because the 30-year went through 5% in the US. That's a worrying sign. And even the 10-year over 4.5. And America can't afford to have that, particularly now with a lot of focus on their budget and the budget deficit. People are getting concerned about it. We've heard these concerns for a long time, but these are real concerns. So they've got to watch that as well. They've got to be very, very careful. So the pressure is going to be on Trump to roll back and to get those bond yields coming down again. But it is a flight from US assets. That concerns, and yet the equity markets are just trading on their own. But you're right to watch it, Simon.
Ricus, I mean, bonds, I take David's point. We're equity people. Bonds are, I know the yield up, price down. That's about as far as I get with bonds. I know that 4.5 is a bad number for the US 10-year. The truth is, equity markets don't care. And I suppose they're saying the bonds are telling us something, but A, it's not anything new, and B, it's kind of stuff that's going to play out in time. And maybe the C is, maybe Trump can, roll back tariffs or something.
Yeah, I think the dichotomy at the moment is if you take a look at the soft indicators in the US, your Michigan consumer confidence, which is at its second lowest level ever since they started measuring. The inflation expectations from consumers in the US sitting at 7.4% for the year. I mean, that's triple our inflation, almost. So people are extraordinarily pessimistic, yes, yet the market looks great. So there's, as I said, there's something that doesn't make sense then. Maybe the thing one has to look out for is bond yields, which tells you the story longer term, where the outlook for equities must at some stage meet the people on the ground's pessimism. So maybe Trump turns around a little bit and the pessimism is a little bit less bad. But I also think that equity markets, specifically in the US, as much as they dropped after the announcement of the global tariffs, it was a V-shaped recovery, and a lot of that was driven by mechanical buying. In other words, where people had to reverse their options. They put options into call options, and the guys that are issuing it must cover those, and that puts a snowball effect where the issuer of options actually have to buy into the market, and you get these huge rallies, which isn't really fundamentally possibly underwritten as much.
I like your point on that, because the option buyer, as you say, they're hedging, so they're off there buying. I buy a little bit of options and they go and buy a whole lot of equity, which kind of almost becomes self-fulfilling. Ricus, let's stay with you. We chatted Sasol, I think was it last week, if my memory is correct. If not, you will point it out to me, but I think you were certainly saying looking good. The Capital Markets Day was yesterday. We got a lot of questions coming through. To be clear, Sasol's only slightly above the Liberation Day levels of 2nd of April. Your take on Sasol post that Capital Markets Day yesterday? Certainly, it's been a good run off that 55-odd low of April.
Yeah, a huge recovery, and great if you were a trader and terrible if you were short. Doesn't put it out of a long-term downtrend, and lots of promises and reorganization going on at the operating level as far as Sasol management is concerned, but it is what it is. It's just saying stuff. I'm going to see them doing stuff, and they will be helped by a higher oil price. That might help them, but I'm probably just too conservative. I would like to see an operational turnaround before and getting somewhere as to where management is aiming for before I seriously consider it.
David, I like the point from Ricus there. Some operational. They're talking about getting Secunded back to nameplate. They're talking about 2 gigawatts of renewable energy. Lots of talking. They still say they'll cut emissions by 25% by 2030. What's your thought on Sasol, David?
Well, they haven't been great at delivering.
No.
As Ricus says, lots of talking, but we haven't seen the delivery. But I think the share price was at that level where you were bound to find the bargain hunters, traders coming in and saying this is just too good to be true. And I think they made the money now. It's had that quick reversal. I don't know, it's from the low, I don't know what's 10, 15 or 20% up. From a trader, you'll take that. Whether it can continue to make up ground from these levels, that's going to be the debate. That will come with delivery. But, good for those people who took it and bought it at these low levels.
No, hats off to them.
Did you?
No, I did not. I said hats off to them. I mean, they're braver than me.
Yeah.
I was not.
But at the end of the day, they've got to deliver. And they've got to deliver on Lake Charles, Louisiana as well, on a lot of things. So.
Yeah, there wasn't much said about Lake Charles, which is a big issue. I mean, beyond the fact that they said, well, maybe. David, before we go to break, Novo Nordisk, new CEO, question coming through. Does David like the new CEO? Certainly price is looking better. It's up 17% in the last month. They fired the other one, well, asked him to politely leave. The new guy?
Everybody's named Lars. They're all named Lars, so you never know. But I mean, listen, this is, I still like the business. I've been a bit concerned by the poor share price performance, and obviously there were issues. Although when the CEO stepped down, there was no connection with that at all. I think it was a very technical thing. He'd been there a long time and so on. But it's still a business I like. I'm terribly disappointed with the share price performance. But I think underneath it all is a drug or is a company that has, that will deliver. And this is still a big issue. The GLP-1 blockers, whatever you call them, the technical term in that, but the obesity and diabetic drugs, I think this is still huge and will deliver over time.
Ricus,
I should live that long. So.
Well, yeah, we need the forever drugs as well as the obesity. Ricus, I'm looking at the chart, 50% down in about the last year. Bit of a rally in the last little while. Novo Nordisk, would it be on your list?
Look, I think as far as pharmaceutical companies are concerned, that's an interesting subsector. And I agree with David. It's such new technology, if I can call it like that. Who knows what the secondary effects are going to be. But out of principle, I'm not fond of pharmaceutical companies because they are so heavily regulated, and it all depends on the next best thing, as your ownership of specific drugs run out. So I'm always more interested in companies that do medical technology, the machines that keep you alive rather than the drugs, something like Medtronic, for example. But if you want to be in that space, I think new Broom, hopefully, the excitement, the overexcitement in that sector has worked off, and Novo Nordisk, is solid enough and exciting enough to maybe start looking around at these levels.
Ricus, let's stay with you. Newton, who was Transaction Capital, and then they threw away all of the spun out the WeBuy cars. They've got their debt business left. A couple of questions coming through it. It's a chart that's hard to tell much about, simply because of the unbundling. It has had a fairly rough little time. Newton, Ricus, any thoughts, insights, anything that you see here and think is interesting? Stock down at $1.50.
Yeah, there's absolutely zero attraction for me. I've never liked that part of the business when it was the old WeBuy cars. I like it even less right now. They're running out of clients and they're running out of money. There's got to be a real turnaround in that business before I'm even faintly interested in it.
David, Newton, debt collection?
They're battling.
Yeah,
I think they unbundled WeBuy cards, and the hope was that they would focus on a very narrow range. I think the taxi's also gone, if I'm not mistaken. And this is just the debt recovery type businesses and that. But that's why I was a bit disappointed in the numbers when I saw them. It's still going to take time. We don't have to do that. We've got so many better companies, good companies. We don't have to look for trouble. I just looked at the results, and whenever I look at a company with brackets around, I just move on, with the brackets around the numbers. Oh no, okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
So I haven't really got any strong feelings, but as Ricus says, it's going to have to be a major turnaround before we actually start to look at it again.
David, staying with you, what about Barloworld? Question coming through. It's been moving. It's legged up nicely since the lows, in fact, almost doubled from the lows of last year. David, would you be looking at Barloworld?
Well, it's subject to a takeover. I think that's still on the cards. Still a lot of scrutiny around it and the price that's being paid. But I don't, it's another company that, and listen, as long as the bid is out there, they're not going to show good profits, because the last thing they want to do is be forced to pay a little higher. So being an accountant, there's lots of tricks that you can use to keep the profits down, with great respect to everybody. But I mean, I've got no strong feelings about it, particularly that it's going to go, it's going to be taken off. I don't know whether it remains on with the small capital. I'm not sure what the deal is. But, once that happened, it also took away my interest.
Yeah, I think there was a standby. They'll try and get enough, and then if they get the 90%, they can force the delisting. Ricus, because the other one was a question coming through. MultiChoice up 4% today. What happened here? Ricus, that's also just the offer, which got Competition Commission approval, as I understand, and that 125 deal is still on the table.
Precisely that. So it's moved closer to that takeout price, because another hurdle has been overcome in that process. And let's face it, MultiChoice desperately needs that, because if that deal doesn't go through, I'm not sure how they're going to make money.
Yeah, well, and to David's point.
There are regulatory issues as well that they still have to overcome. Is that part of the Competition Commission's mandate?
So that is ICOSA. And the regulatory is that foreigners can't hold more than 20% of our media businesses. But there are ways that you can structure it in terms of economic interest and voting interest But and fun fact, the ANC wanted to actually change that to foreigners could hold 49%, but they never got that bill through Parliament.
But Simon, take the money. Why wait? You've only got a little bit left there to make. What's it, 160, 170 to 125? Take the money, find something else now.
So, David, staying with you, Costco, question coming through. I've held Costco for some time. I've done incredibly well, but it is a 50 PE. Should I take some money, or has this still got some business here?
Yeah, I actually prefer Walmart. There was a very good article about Walmart in The Economist this weekend, the last issue. Worth reading for anybody who's interested in that area of the market. And I think they're setting the pace now. The new management came in, and it's my favorite in that sector. But Costco is a superb company. Very, very, very good company. And their model is just so interesting. I know they finally put up their fees, their membership fees. It's almost like a buying organization rather than you get membership, and like Macro used to be, or Macro might even still be. You pay membership and you get very good bargains. But it's a very well-run business. This was Charlie Munger's favorite company. He was a director. I think he was on the board. I still like them, and I certainly have them in some portfolios. Yeah. Stay with it. They'll pass on. They'll manage the tariffs, and they'll still come out okay.
Yeah, Macro, as you said, still does the same, although Macro is free. Ricus, mistaken, and not a 50 PE, a 60 PE, but a lovely looking chart. Ricus, would this be a stock that would grab your attention at a 60 PE? Great business. With respect, it sells baked beans and stuff, and gold bars, actually.
Great business. I'm worried at those valuations. My focus has been probably a little bit more defensive. Procter and Gamble, but longer term, I don't think you can go against that. Either Walmart, Costco, those are well-run companies. You just have to pick the right price to buy them at. Whether it's right now with these American consumer probably under pressure, I'm not so sure, but certainly any weakness I'll be in.
And Walmart PE is 41, and here we look at Checkers, ShopRite with its 20 PE, all ensconced, and we know nothing. Ricus, Southern Sun's results out, not bad. Zanotti was chatting with the CEO just before we came on air. He's talking about troubles in Mozambique. He's talking about lack of interest in Durban, but Joburg and Cape Town rocking. What did you make of the numbers? Would this be a worth leisure pick for you in the sector? Of course, no gambling, which sets it apart from some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get a well-run company in that sector, great. Southern Suns is one of them. Sun International is the other one I like. Obviously, as you said, with Southern Suns, no gambling, and I went sort of for the mix between gambling and leisure. But yeah, results excellent, graphs looking great. I have no problem being in either one of those two.
David, leisure for you and the Sun International, Southern Sun results rather?
They've redone, they've fixed up their hotels, a lot of internal traveling because you just cannot afford to go overseas. So I think a lot of people are staying at home, and it's got a good name. It's a pretty decent result. So I think if it continues along that way, as we get into the holiday season in July and then afterwards into December and that. It's decent business, and these are good results.
So then what about...
I didn't even know they existed. I always forget about them because we always head towards sports betting and those kind of companies. But as you say, this is just a pure hospitality play.
Yeah, and there was all the shuffling and unbundling and confusing stuff. And so, David, Reunert trading update earlier today. I got to say, this is a stock I intuitively like. They've got the cables business, a defense business, an ITC business. But that wasn't a very good update, and the stock's been under pressure for a bit.
Yeah, it was a trading update. I've always liked the stock, and I've liked the turnaround that we've seen. But apparently, if you look at it, there were issues. A defense contract has been delayed. The cable business, of course, the cable business is going to be hurt because no one's spending money on infrastructure. And then they did mention as well in the comparatives there was a claim, a COVID claim, so that distorted the comparatives, and I think messed it up. But again, it's been technically, it's been a very well-run business, but economy's not helping it.
Yeah.
So we're all looking forward to that so-called trillion rand that's going to be spent over the next few years plus.
We've heard that before. To Ricus's point about
Show
the
me
budget.
the money,
Yeah, there's not much money there. But let's go to stock picks. Ricus, your pick was listed in, no, it can't be, it's the wrong day. They got the wrong company. But you're going with Scottish Mortgage, which has been around forever and is an interesting business. Your pick for this evening.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with mortgages or housing or anything like that. It's an investment fund. It's listed in London. They've been going for 116 years with the same philosophy. They have about 25 odd % in things that are not listed, and otherwise they're always looking for the next best thing. They've got about 100 different companies in their portfolio, but focused on what they perceive as value going forward. Currently that's focused, and I'm going to read off here because, it's first of all, autonomous technology, robocars, that kind of thing. The people that make AI stuff, NVIDIA, for example, the people that apply it, in other words, digitization of money, and also AI infrastructure, as I said, the implants themselves. Go and take a look at their track record. It's absolutely brilliant. And there was a bit of a reshuffle in management about a year and a half ago, which depressed the price. I think they've turned the corner, and yeah, I think it's an immediate buy for anything to do with technology going forward, and you're getting a great diversification if you just own that fund.
Yeah, and if my memory is correct, they did, or maybe they still do, they hold some unlisted SpaceX. I remember once trying to find. Yep, indeed they do.
That sounds like a Dickens company, eh?
It does,
Scottish
but it totally isn't. No, it totally sounds Dickens.
You see chaps with quill pens there.
Or they might have quill pens, but they invest in the future. David, you're going with Alphabet. They had their AIO day before yesterday. Lots of exciting things.
That's why I like them. They've come under such pressure because of breakup, from competition commission type issues in America, and the fact that they were going to break up, and I think listening to Sundar Pichai, I hope I pronounced that correct. I like where they're going in search, with very much an AI focus. I see the shares have actually picked up today about 4 or 5%, but I think don't dismiss them. They've kind of been brushed aside against all the others, but this is a smart company, and smart management as well.
Yeah, and they've done. I mean, that pitch. There was so much at that AIO, but I mean, it was some of it was really impressive looking, and some of it is actually real, rather than being sort of like Apple, which is someday in the future. But that's all for Stockwatch today. Thanks to our guests, Ricus, PSG Hole and One Ruimsig, going with Scottish Mortgage, David Shapiro, Sasfin Securities with Alphabet. Up next, the close. Stay watching.
Thank you.